Good day, it's Constantine. Today we'll be recording a grand piano. Of course, there is not just one way of doing it, nor is there a way that will work every single time. The key word is context. What sound are you after? Do you want a big sound? Do you want something more ambient? And then the microphones, do you want the dynamic sound, the small diaphragm or the big diaphragm, condenser sound? So always have a sound in mind before you start recording. Don't just try and fix it in post later. And then another thing are the microphones. How many do you have? You have one, you can do a mono recording. If you have two, you can do a stereo recording. If you have more mics, you can set up some room mics as well. Now, a key thing to capturing a good recording is not the microphone. It's a combination of things. It's the musician, the instrument, the recording environment, and the microphone position. Of course, the microphone plays an important role, but these things are very important to get right. And the good thing is, we are in luck today because we have with us an amazing classical pianist, Yiru Peng.
Hi, everyone.
And the instrument, that's a Steinway Model D concert grand piano. It's a beautiful instrument. The recording environment, even though it's big, it's a bit dry. So we always end up putting a bit of reverb on it, but for this one we're just going to keep it pure, no effects, no reverb. The music we will be playing is by Martin Kern and it's called Tango Piano. If you want to check more about it, just check the description. And lastly, do not trust your eyes. The microphone positions we're going to demonstrate here are a very good starting point, but if it works, fine, use it. If it doesn't work, just move the mics and trust your ears. Now let's start with some mono recordings and then look at some stereo recordings. For the first mono technique, we have a cardioid mic pointing down the center of the piano, where the bass and high strings meet. So the distance depends. It's from 30 centimeters to 60 centimeters. It depends what you want. If you want a brighter sound, you can go closer to the strings. If you want more body, you can just move away from the strings. For this example, we are at 30 centimeters. Now let's have a listen. So this technique is exactly the same one as before, but instead of a cardioid mic, we use an Omni mic. Okay, for this one, you have to move around a bit and find the best sounding position. So in our case, we're about 90 centimeters away from the piano, from the middle of this curve, and the mics are about 160 meters away from the ground, pointing to the middle of the soundboard. Okay, this one is exactly the same as the one before, but we get even more, we are capturing even more space. So this time we are about 180 meters away from the piano, and it's also about 190 off the ground. And same as before, we're just pointing the center of the soundboard. Let's have a listen. For this one, we put the mic behind the musician, but I don't put it exactly behind the musician because the cover of the piano is just taking away some of the sound. So if I'm here, I get a better sound. But again, just move around and see what sounds best. So I'm to the side of the musician, about 185 meters off the ground, and I'm pointing straight to the strings, to the center of the piano. Now let's have a listen. Okay, stereo techniques. Now, as you will see in most of the demonstrations we'll do, there are two Omni mics up here as well. So these are proper Omni mics. That means they are pressure operated and not pressure gradient, which means that even though we do distance miking, we still get a decent bass response. I always put some room mics up as well to capture some of the ambience, but at the end of the day, you don't have to use them. But it's good if they're there. I will demonstrate all the techniques just with the mics we have in the piano for close miking, and then at the very end I will just demonstrate the Omnis blended in as well. So for the first one, we have an XY configuration. It's exactly as the first mono technique we showed. It's about, in the center of the piano where the high and low strings meet, and it's the distance again, it depends. If you want a brighter sound, you go closer. If you want more body, you move away. For this example, we are 30 centimeters away from the strings. Let's have a listen. For this one, we have the XY outside the piano. We are about 90 centimeters away from the center of that curve here, and about 1.5 meters away from the ground. And the mics are pointing to the center of the soundboard. Let's have a listen. For this technique, we do the exact same thing, but move the mics further back. We are about 1.50 meters away from the piano, and a bit higher this time, again facing at the center of the soundboard. Of course, this way you capture more space, which means we don't have to use the Omni mics there. It's just these two. For this one, we're still in XY, and we are 60 centimeters away from the piano and 35 centimeters away from the strings. The mics are pointing dead center, and they're in line with the logo of the piano. Now, if you want to change the sound, if you want a brighter sound, you can move closer to the hammers. If you want a bit more body, you can move further back. And same thing with the distance, up and down. Just play around with it and see which sounds best for what you want. Now let's have a listen. For this one, we use the same technique as the mono technique, but instead we are in XY, and we are behind the pianist to just listen to what they're listening. And again, as before, I'm a bit to the side and pointing down the center of the strings. Let's have a listen. Okay, A, B now. Two microphones, still a stereo technique. The first mic is pointing above the high strings, and the second mic is above the bass strings. Now the distance is important. What you have in the first mic, you should have 3 times that to avoid phase issues. In this example, we're 25 centimeters above the strings, so we're 75 centimeters away from the mics. Again, you can play with the distance. If you want a brighter sound, just go closer to the strings. If you want more body, just move them up a bit. Let's have a listen. Okay, for this one, we put a mic beside the musician. So one mic for the left side, one mic from the right side. This way we can have a listen to what they're listening. This is a very natural sound. And the distance and the height, it depends. Just play around with it until you find something that fits what you need. Let's have a listen. Okay, a different one right now. This is ORTF. You have to be extra careful with this one, because with XY you can go a bit wider, it's fine, but this one has to be very precise. The mics have an angle of 110 degrees and the distance between them is 17 centimeters. Again, the distance from the keys and the strings, it depends on what you want. For this example, we are 55 centimeters away from the keyboard and 35 centimeters away. Now, another thing you have to take care with ORTF is normally it's audience perspective, but right now, for the piano recording, we are reversing them, so we hear what the piano player is hearing. So the left one is going to be 1, and the second one is going to be right. So just reverse the ORTF to hear the pianist perspective. Let's have a listen.